Hello, everyone. I would first like to thank you for taking the time to join our MR8 conference. So why are we all gathered here today to watch this presentation? What is this all about? It's first about introductions. This is our way of putting a face, or a voice in this case, to the OMTI team that brings you meta records and a chance to talk in person. My name is Ted Yu, and I will be covering the user feedback with Customer Portal website. Our MR8 and MR Web updates will be presented by Jason He. Every person here is important. It's how OMTI collects knowledge and experience of all MR users to make connections and learn from each other. The bigger our community grows, the better the system becomes. MR has been around for 20 years, and in that time, all of the changes in the product have been driven by the needs of your industry. We figured it's time we had an event where we could all get together and talk about MR. Some of you already use the Idea Collaborator. For those who do not know what it is, Idea Collaborator is a way to get your ideas for improving OMTI products like MR8 and MR Web implemented in future versions. It replaces our existing feedback system with an online forum where everyone who uses the same products as you do can post suggestions and vote for those they would like to see in upcoming versions. So let's take a look at the customer portal. Any user that is set up with an account will be able to log in with their email address. If this is the first time using your account and you do not have a password, click on the Forgot Password and enter your email address, and you will be emailed a link to create your password. But since I already have one set up, I'm going to cancel out of here and log in. First thing you want to do as a company owner or manager is you want to make sure proper accounts are set up. At the top, we're going to click on Organizations and Users. In here, you're able to edit information about your company by clicking on the button at the top. If you need to update your address, phone, fax number, or if you want to use a different billing address from your main office, then click the box at the top right. We're not going to do that, so we're going to click Cancel and OK to confirm. Below, you will see all the users that are currently set up under your company. You can click into the user, modify their settings like changing the accessibility to user or admin, and down below is where you specify which email subscriptions you would like to receive from us. If you want to be part of the MR community, then checking off Idea Collaborator is a must. So every time a new idea is submitted through the customer portal, an auto email will be sent to you. Let's click Save to keep our changes. Also, in here, if you want to update your credit card that's on file for payments, you can click on the Credit Card Info button at the top, and in here you'll notice that the card is in red. That's because the expiration date is expired. By clicking on the card number link, you're able to edit your card. Keep in mind that only administrators and users who belong to an accounting group can access these features. The main purpose of this system is to help all of us be automated. There's no need to make calls and wait for us to pick up to update your company information. Now, if you click on the Products menu at the top, you will see all the different products that you subscribe to. If you would like to add additional licenses, then click on Request Change Licenses. Select how many licenses you wish to add, and it will generate a ticket for one of our representatives to handle. So if you want to add licenses, you no longer need to call us for that either. Now let's talk about the Idea Collaborator. Ideas that are most popular with clients will be priorities for our development team. You will no longer have to wonder if we are paying attention to your idea, and we no longer have to wonder if a request is useful enough to users to be worth the time, effort, and expense of developing the idea. By clicking on the idea, you can see the original post, along with other comments from the community. Down below is where you can add your own comments and vote for this idea. To submit your own idea, click on the New button at the top right and fill in your description. You want to give us as much information on how this would benefit your company so that other users in the community can agree and vote along with you. I'm now going to talk to you about cloud hosting. By now, most of you should have at least heard about what cloud computing is. Almost 1 year ago, we introduced cloud hosting service for MR8's sister product, RB8. And since the release, we've had 100% customer satisfaction turnaround. Over the next session, I'm going to be talking about what MR8 Cloud is exactly and how it will benefit your daily life. We would like to share the same service to our MR customers, but first it's time to educate you. Time to take a close-up look. It's your responsibility to store and maintain all files. Repository files can be sensitive case information, so security must be a priority. Are you taking all the right precautions? You set backups for your MR8 data, but what about all your repository files? Are they being backed up constantly? Do you even know? As you're uploading more records, important letters, or other case files to your repository, the size will continue to grow exponentially. Eventually, your hard drive will run out of space, and planning for upgrade is required. Your MR8 system is hosted on remote servers provided by Microsoft Azure platform. This is not a stripped-down version, so you won't notice anything different about MR8. Since MR8 Cloud will be mirroring your data between different servers, there will not be any downtime. If one server goes down, the other server automatically takes over. Keep in mind that MR8 Cloud is not only a better backup solution, but it's the best kind of uptime solution. You may have expensive backup utilities set up at your office, but the time it takes to get your backup running could cost you money in the end. And once restored, you may not even get the latest data. After all, time is money. There are no worries about opening necessary ports for remote connection or MR Web setup. The hassle of contacting your technician to configure settings or trouble of moving office location is completely eliminated. How great would it feel if you never had to think about your data from being compromised or wondering if MR8 will be compatible with the next Microsoft Server OS coming out? Your data sits behind secure firewalls that is completely managed by OMTI, so there is no IT commitment or spending extra time getting us connected to your servers. This will save you time, money, and aggravation. While on MR8 Cloud, you will always be on the latest version. If you ever had the situation of calling us and reported a problem with something in the system, you would hear us tell you to get all your users out and then update to the latest version. That will no longer be the case. OMTI will work with your schedule at no additional cost. If you cannot afford to be down during business hours, scheduling this over the weekend will not be a problem. OMTI will do all the work for you, transferring all of your data and assisting with configuring your workstations. The next morning, when you come into your office and use MR8, nothing will be changed. You can continue to work your daily tasks on normal schedule. Are you using VPN software, LogMeIn, or other kind of remote connections? All of that will no longer be required to use MR8. You can securely connect to MR8 from anywhere. Here's the comparison chart. On the left, it displays how much you're currently paying for MR8 Subscribe. On the right is the difference to move to MR8 Cloud. The first line is your server hardware and software cost. This is all calculated based on your current setup. Moving to MR8 Cloud eliminates all costs of that. The base price for one user license of MR8 is $150 a month. To go to the cloud, it's an additional $100 a month. Then if you have additional user licenses, the price is $40 per month. But with MR8 Cloud, you're only paying $20 more per month. If you have MR8 Cloud, you can add additional storage as needed. The first 100 gigs are included in the base price. For $50 a month, you can increase the MR8 Cloud storage to 500 gigs. With MR8 Cloud, you can add additional space by just letting us know. There are no necessary hardware upgrades you need to plan for. Running out of space will never be an issue. And finally, all the other costs to maintain backups and IT contractors for your MR8 server is now handled by OMTI. In conclusion, moving to the cloud means less expense, less hassle, better security, and best of all, self-assurance. Thank you for listening, but most of all, thank you for your feedback and ideas. We would like to provide the cloud service to our MR community, but we need to know how many of you would consider moving. There will be a poll created, and we're going to send you in a newsletter so that you can vote and reply back to you the answers. I am now going to hand over the mic over to Jason to present all the new MR8 and MR Web updates.
Thank you, Ted. Good day, everyone. And first, I would like to say thank you very much for joining this year's Team MR conference. I will be covering the MR8 and MR Web updates during this session. So without further ado, let's get started. So first, we're going to take a look at some of the Message Center updates that we've added. We've added a remind date to the message grid, and the important flag logic has changed. So basically, we've made a couple of changes to how messages received in the Message Center appear and display data. So let's take a look at these. So we're going to switch over to MR8 now, and we're going to go to the Message Center. And we're going to take a look at that second message right there. And you're going to notice that this particular message now has a remind date built into the message, so the user can easily see when that message reminder was set for themselves. Now also, if you take a look at the messages I've received up there at the top, I have 3 of them, and one of them has the important red flag there. Now, in the current version, all messages received were flagged as important. Now messages received will only be flagged important if the case that it pertains to is actually a rush case. So that will make it easier for you all to distinguish rush cases from other message types received. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at some shipping enhancements that have been added. You can now prepare and print shipping labels if you use FedEx and or UPS to ship your packages out. So let's take a look at how this is all done. Now first, let's take a look at how you will prepare MR8 for FedEx and UPS shipping. We're going to click on Tools and select System Preferences. And in here towards the bottom, we're going to click on the Shipping tab. At the top is the UPS account information section for UPS shipping. And below you will have the FedEx account information for FedEx shipping. You will have to input all of the necessary data in the supplied fields before you can try to create and print shipping labels. If you need assistance gathering some of the information, we've added useful links to our customer portal that instruct you on how to obtain your keys for FedEx and UPS. So this will take you step by step on how to obtain everything, and basically you'll be able to plug the data in after that. So make sure you have all that information added to MR8 before you attempt to use shipping. Now that we have all of our information set in the settings, let's take a look at how the shipping label is prepared. So we're going to click on Production, and we're going to select Turn In. We'll input order number 5113 and click Search. So part number 1 already has a record received, and then we've actually already started the turn-in process. So let's double-click part number 1. And now in step number 3, notice the order has been added. So we're going to go ahead and double-click that order. And if we click on the Shipping tab, this is where you would see any kind of shipping that you would have added. Of course, we haven't initiated any shipping yet, so what we're going to do is we're going to click the New button. And for your delivery method, you'll pull the drop down, and select either FedEx or UPS. In our example, we're going to choose FedEx. And once you choose the delivery method as FedEx, the print shipping label becomes populated. So let's click on that button there. And in the print shipping label window, we will now set all of the information needed to create the label. So starting at the top left, you can choose the ship from, which will default to the user preference set default business unit, but you can choose any other business unit set up in your system to ship from. Select the ship to, which will default to the sold to, but you can also change that to the billed to as well. Then at the bottom, you can choose important package information, such as the packaging type, the weight, and the declared value. In the services to the right, you can select the service type, how the pickup, drop-off will be handled, and whether or not a signature is required. Now, at the bottom for the shipping label, we're going to leave that at PDF and click Get Shipping Label. This will now open your Adobe program, and you can actually see the shipping label, so you can save it or print it out as needed. And so we're going to go ahead and X out of here. And then once we're done, we'll go ahead and X out of here too. Once we're back at the new shipment window, notice the tracking number is automatically input, so we can track that package in the future. There's a track shipment button over to the right. And then in the remarks section, we do note the estimated charge. Okay, so let's go ahead and save and close that and close out of everything here. And now let's move on to the next topic, some case manager enhancements. We've added more search criteria to the case manager. You have the ability to search by the patient DOB and party type. And the ordering client tied to scheduling party logic has changed. So let's take a look at these two. Let's open the case manager. So first, if we look to the left, you'll now see party type to search by right there. And if we scroll down, you'll see patient DOB. So we give you two new options to pull up cases by. If you're using DOB, we suggest extending the database timeout on each PC. To do this, you'll click on Personal, select User Preferences, and we're going to click on the Database tab. So you can pull the drop down here and extend that timeout. Now, per HIPAA compliance, the DOB is stored as an encrypted data field. So when searching by that DOB, the system has to decrypt that field to be able to search for the data and actually produce the results. An easy way of saying it is basically the system has to search across a lot more data to produce the results. So in essence, it could take longer. So let's go ahead and get out of here. We'll click OK. And we're actually going to search by the patient DOB. So we're going to input 06/29/1953. And we'll click Search. So once you click Search, the system will actually give you a warning. And this warning is basically reiterating everything I just said about decrypting the data and possibly it taking longer to produce the results. So let's go ahead and click OK. So in my example, the case pulls up right away. Now let's talk about the party type search criteria. The party type selection now lets you search for cases by the scheduling party or other party. Other party will be any contact added to the Parties tab in the case setup that is not flagged as the scheduling attorney. Another change to MR8 is how the ordering client on the General tab of the case is tied to the scheduling party on the Parties tab. In the current version, if someone changes the ordering client on the General tab of the case and saves that change, the scheduling party on the Parties tab will not automatically change. You have to remember to change it in both places. After the update, Once you change the ordering attorney on the general tab and you save your change, it will automatically change the party on the parties tab for you. So you can see we changed ours from Joan to David, and that worked. So this will also take away the ability for someone to accidentally delete the scheduling party from the parties tab. Okay, so let's go take a look at a couple of more case manager enhancements. Exclude holidays when calculating due dates. So now you can exclude holidays from the parts due dates number of days calculation. We've added the ability for users to be able to change tracking steps for multiple parts for a case at the same time. Bulk update options for parts. So we've added the ability to bulk update multiple parts for the same case at one time. And let's take a look at where the holidays are excluded from the parts due days in calculation. So we're going to click on Tools and select System Preferences. And we're going to click on the Holidays tab. Here we list a bunch of different U.S. holidays. After you update, all of the holidays for exclusion will be unchecked by default. So if you do want to exclude any of those holidays, you will need to check the corresponding box underneath Active. So we'll go ahead and activate all these holidays and click OK. Now let's talk about bulk changing the tracking step for a case. So let's go to the case manager again. So here we have our case already pulled up. And now you'll notice we have 3 parts at the bottom. So you can highlight multiple or all the parts for that case. And now you can simply right-click, select Change Tracking Step, and then pick your step that you want, assign it to a user if you need to, make any remarks, and click OK. Before, you could only do this task in the Task Manager. Something to note regarding this feature is that you can only change the tracking step for multiple parts if the tracking item for the parts are all the same. So it all has to be the same tracking item. Now, bulk update options. Now, if we highlight, again, all the parts for this particular case, if we right-click, you now have a bulk update option. And if we choose Field to Update, pull the drop-down, we've added the ability for you all to bulk update the action type and the date, bulk update the due date, the expediter, the ordered date, and the record type. Okay, let's go ahead and get out of here, and we'll continue with some more case manager updates. Spell checker for the status notes. So when entering status notes, there is now a spell checker. Status notes to other parts function has been added. So you can now have the ability to create a single status note and copy that exact note to other parts for that case. So you don't have to enter them again one by one. And we added the ability to add more serve by options. A lot of people wanted more options. I think by default we only had mail, hand, and third party. Okay, so let's take a look at these. So we're going to go back to the case manager working with the same case, and we're going to open up part number 1. And let's click on the additional info tab. And in the status notes section, if we type something in here, and you'll notice down below there's now a spell checker button, so you can check your spelling. And then I'll also note you can see the suggestions it'll make to fix it for you. So we can go ahead and get out of here. Now notice to the right of that button, there's also a Add Status Notes to Other Parts option. If you click that option, you can enter a single note in the Status Notes section. And down below, you'll see all the other parts for that case. So if we wanted to copy the same note into the Status Notes section of those other parts, we can click Select All at the top. And now we can click Save and Close. That will add the same note to the status note section for the other checked parts. So actually, if we get out of here and open up part 2, and you can see that same note is already there. Now, before we leave this screen and we look back at the top of the serve by, this was something that was requested, and you guys wanted the ability to add more options. So we've added the ability in the code manager for you to be able to add your own serve by options. So we've already added our own here. As you can see, we added certified mail, email, and fax to our drop-down list. So you can set the same ones up as well, anything you want. Okay, let's go take a look at the last bit of Case Manager updates. And there's just one more. Added copy to the other parts function to the Notes log tab. You can now copy notes entered in the Notes log tab of a part to other parts for the same case. So let's go back to the Case Manager. We're going to open up part 1 here. And we're going to click on the Notes log tab. And let's say I want to actually copy that last note that was entered, and I want to copy it to the other parts for this case. So with the particular note that you want to copy highlighted, click on Copy to Other Parts at the top, and now you'll get a listing of all the parts for that case. So I want to copy them to them both, let's say, so let's click Select All, and then click OK. This operation was successful, so we can save and close this. And again, if we open up part number 2, click on the Notes log tab, there's that same note. Okay, so now let's talk about some form manager enhancements. Our engineers have spent a lot of time adding additional merge fields to all of the form types in the form manager. We had a lot of big requests for changes to the merge fields, as you can imagine. As we go through the next slides entitled Printing Forms, you're going to see a list of the form types on the left and then the merge fields on the right for each of the form types that we've added. When we send out the update notification, and after you perform your MR8 server update and log in for the first time, you'll get the full update list, so you will be able to see all of the available merge fields that have been added to every single form type. So you will get that list. Now, a lot of what has been added in the form of merge fields comes directly from ideas accepted in the Idea Collaborator. I know, for an example, one idea that came in and when it was accepted was the ability to add clerk information to one of the forms. Well, we added the clerk information, and as a matter of fact, we actually added the ability to add the clerk information to all the form types. Another big one was to add the ability to add the service date from and service date to. And again, we've added that to a number of forms where it was applicable. Okay, so we're going to stop right here on this particular form because this is talking about the data source template. And in particular, the one field you see in there that is listed in red, the part.scope. We've added the ability to add the scope to the data source template function. Now, adding the scope to the data source template does come with one hurdle. So let's switch over to MR8, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we're going to click on Setup and select Data Source Templates and pull the drop down for form type, and we're just going to select one. We'll select Notice, for example, and we'll click Search. Now we're going to double click the part.part.info field right there. And again, you can see the part.part.info when added to a form, it will include location information. Okay, we have location name, we have order number, part number, record type, service date, from and to. Now some people may want to put the scope in that information as well. So if we put our mouse cursor at the very bottom, and let's say we're going to add the scope, so we'll click on Actions, Add Data Field, select Part, and then scroll down and look down. There we go, Scope. Now once I click Scope, the system's going to give you a message. If you are using scope attachments, adding scopes here will not print the scope attachment. Do you still want to add the scope? We can click Yes to add it. That message is telling you that if you are using a scope attachment, adding the scope to the form and selecting multiple parts will cause the system to not print the scope attachments behind the actual form. Because you could have multiple parts selected that say see attached exhibit A or B, and the system wouldn't know which one to actually put behind it and what it actually applies to. Okay, so now we're going to look at others. Okay, so added the sales rep to the firm's grid, and we added the sales rep to the contacts grid. So what this does is, basically for their respective functions, we gave you a column when you search for data, and you can easily see which sales rep is tied to your client. Added firm and contact to the task manager's grid. So in the task manager, we added the firm and contacts column so you can see which client the parts are actually tied to. Now we'll move on to the MR Web side of things. Added option to periodically change web user's password. To display more data, we changed the screen width to be flexible and added rush information in orders progress and case manager tabs. Displayed the part number in the file list and the repository tab. And lastly here, attorney selection is defaulted to all. So let's take a look at these now. But before we go to MR Web, we're actually going to go to MR8. And we're going to talk about how you set up the reset password options. So in MR8, we're going to click on Tools, go down to Web, and select Site Configurations. So in here, we're going to click on the very last tab, which is Reset Password. And the very bottom section, Other Options, that's all new. So here are the options. Enforce Reset Password. It's a yes or no selection. After you run the update, this will default to no. If you select yes, that will enable the feature. Duration for reset password. Choose between 30, 60, 90, or 180 days for the length of time a password will be good for before it has to be reset. Allow same password as current. Again, it's a yes or no selection. Selecting no will force the user to create a new password when it's time to reset it. Selecting yes will allow the user to use the same password when it's time to reset it. Okay, so those are your options. And always remember, any change you ever make in the site configurations, always click Save at the top left. So now we're going to switch over to MR Web, and we're going to log in as Dave. Okay, so let's click on the repository tab first. And for the case name, let's input Sally. And we're going to click Search. Now notice if you look at the view here, the screen width has been changed to display more data all the way across. So we're going to give you a comparison shot right now. So let's actually, we have another tab open where we have the current version of MR Web. And we're going to log in. And here, if you click on the repository tab, you can kind of see if you flip back and forth between the two sites and how it stretches across the screen now. So we're actually giving you more data. It's easier to see. It's not so compact. So also notice, let's go ahead and click on this case now. And when you get the listing of all the files available for download, we now added a part number column over here to the right. So now your clients can see which part the files are actually tied to. So it's easier for them to find the files they need. Okay, let's click on the Orders Progress tab. And here we'll see the active case 5113. And notice now to the right, there is a rush column. So now we can see whether the case is actually a rush case or not. So it's easy for your clients to distinguish which of their cases are rush. Check will mean it's obviously a rush case. Unchecked is not a rush case. Now this will also be the same In the Case Manager tab as well, there will be the same column with that same checkbox. On all the tabs now, where there is an attorney drop-down, we default the attorney selection to all. This will help with secretaries and paralegals logging in to actually download or request records for their attorneys, especially when they're actually trying to submit an order, because it won't default to the attorney, it'll default to themselves. It'll default to all so they can see all of the orders they're working on and then easily submit it. They don't have to search for it anymore. So that is going to do it for the MR8 and MR Web updates.